I'm Dr. Warren Farrell.
Hey.
I'm doing a piece for the Des Moines Register on the different presidential candidates' position on boys and whether they understand the boy crisis is one of the main crises of our time.
Yeah.
You heard Fed Reserve Chair Jerome Powell declare it as one of the few major crises that we have in the country.
Yeah, no, I'm on it. I have one of the most progressive agendas going into our schools with social and emotional learning, making sure that we're actually dealing with the trauma that these young kids are dealing with, boys and girls.
Yes.
I'm very familiar with the teen suicide rates that are happening in the United States. My wife's a school teacher. My kids our oldest is 16. Our daughter's 15.
Yes.
We know what they're going through, and we know how hard it is. And I think it is going to take investments into our schools, after school, summer school, things like arts and music being able to be accessed in our schools, where kids can physical education, vocational training, home economics. Like, we've got to rebuild those pathways for kids to go into and be able to learn confidence, resiliency. But social and emotional learning is going to be the big piece of it for me, because it deals with the trauma that so many kids are going through, the adverse childhood experiences that they're going through. Yeah, and until you address the trauma, they're not going to have the resiliency they need. They're not going to be able to have healthy relationships. They're not going to be able to de-escalate themselves out of fight or flight mode. And they're going to be in a constant state of, fight. And it's important that we teach them how to build these healthy relationships. And I think art and music and dance, those things are really important too. Summer school, after school programs, and things to do in the summer. We've got to build community centers. We've got to go back and build public pools again for kids to hang out in the summer. So there's a reason why when we disinvested in all of these things, all of a sudden these problems started to emerge. And so I'm committed to do that in a very big way.
One of the things I discovered in my...
I got to get on live here. I can catch you right after, though.
Hey, thank you. Let's do that. Please, thank you.
I was asked by the White House to join the White House Council on Women and Girls Advisory Board.
Excuse me.
And I was at the same time understanding that there was something going on with boys and men, but I didn't know what. And I did a lot of research, which led to this small little book.
I think I've seen you. Have you been on TV?
I've been on TV a lot. I just did a whole hour on C-SPAN a couple of days ago. And did WHO and a huge amount of TV. But what I am doing now for the Des Moines Register is asking the candidates about what they understand about boys' issues and men's issues and what they're open to learning about this. And the big finding that I did with the Boy Crisis book was finding that the ISIS recruits were more than 90% dad-deprived boys. The prisoners were more than 90% of the 93% that are males. The prisoners are more than 90% dad-deprived boys. And the mass shooters were not just boys, mostly white boys, but also almost all of them dad-deprived. And so I started to see that the women who were single moms were dealing with this enormous experience of being overwhelmed. Dads were feeling they had no purpose, they were being left out of the process, and the kids needed their dads. And so it was like a three-way lose situation. And so as I started interviewing people, many of the moms said to me, if there's a candidate out there who understands why my son is not doing well in school, why he's falling behind in grades, obesity, being addicted to video games, porn, and so on. If there's a candidate that understands that, I care more about my son than I care about my party label. And so I suddenly realized it's this enormous opportunity out there. Because I ran for governor of California as a Democrat and was on the board of NOW in New York City. I was a little bit more...
Congratulations for not winning.
Thank you. It's truly an act of masochism. I don't know how you do it. Right? The patience and the stamina that it takes.
Well, I think what I mentioned earlier, and I've been pushing this for a long time, the idea around the social and emotional well-being of our kids, understanding their trauma is the first step. If you don't acknowledge that that's a problem, if you don't realize and acknowledge as a school system that they have these adverse childhood experiences. I have be making a proposal here in the coming days around making sure there's a mental health counselor in every school in the United States, having access to play therapy, having access to these kind of things that will help the kids heal. It's all about healing. And then it's also about them connecting with their teacher, connecting with their fellow students, connecting with the principal and the broader community, and then bringing the parents in. I mean, my wife was a single mom. You know, she was divorced and had 2 kids. My mom was divorced and had a couple kids. This is something that I'm familiar with, and I recognize it. And I remember looking back, it was the coaches that I had playing sports that were a big influence on my life. But it can't just be sports, although that's a part of it. It's got to be the Boy Scouts. It's got to be church organizations. It's got to be, you know, summer leagues and intramural leagues where you do have coaches, but you're not necessarily on the varsity team, but just access. And so we failed to invest into our schools again and really give the kids the kind of things that they need. And I mentioned in my speech about the New Deal in Roosevelt, it was about how can government action help our kids. And you know, you can't get it with a tax cut for the top 1%. That doesn't pay a teacher more. It doesn't expand the curriculum. It doesn't put arts and music in our schools. It doesn't put urban gardens in our neighborhoods. I mean, these are all the things that we could do with kids. The YMCA, Boys and Girls Club.
Male teachers in the school pay more so they can get.
Well, I don't know. I mean, each school district has to make that, but yeah, I mean, it's not. And it's not just about paying teachers more. My wife is a teacher, so I'm all for that. But it's about school climate. It's about feeling like you're in a school system that is on the move, making things happen for the kids, and watching the kids change, and taking a kid who has some trauma and then, you know, working them through the process and getting them healed, but also not lowering the bar for them either. Right? You've got to keep
boys love challenges.
You've got to keep that bar high. I think kids will respond. It's like, look, we're here to help you. We love you. This sucks, whatever you're dealing with, and all situations are different. But we love you, and we're here for you, and we're going to help you. And you're going to be stronger when you get to the other side of this thing, and you're going to be resilient. And those are the people we need in the economy. Like those are the entrepreneurs. Those will be the risk takers. You know, those will be the ones that, you know, we've got to create what I'm calling a fearless America. If we're going to get out of this mess that we're in, it's got to be fearlessness. We've got to go from fear to fearlessness, and teaching our kids resiliency and being able to really handle their own conflict, I think, is a really important thing, because part of what you see with a lot of conflict and divorce is it doesn't always get handled properly. And so to raise these kids to handle adversity and to handle relationships in a way and resolve conflict in an appropriate way, healthy way, is going to be important if we're going to end the cycle.
I would agree. One of the things that I have found is that in Denmark, for example, in first, second, third grade, they have communication training, and these boys do much less bullying, and they don't feel like they're hiding behind a mask of masculinity, not able to sort of share who they really are. And that combined with faith-based communities getting boys together to actually talk about who they are, as opposed to just the religion, and then getting adult couples, instead of learning how to communicate non-defensively, that all 3 of those work together. So
conflict resolution. I wear this band. It's called Becoming a Man.
Oh, really?
And this is a program in the south side of Chicago.
Oh, yeah, BAM. Of course, President Obama started.
They helped. My brother's keeper has helped with this. But it's an amazing program, and I heard about it, and I went to visit it. And this school they do meditation in the school. And then they have the BAM program, which is a social and emotional learning based program. But they take 55 kids every year, and they have them in a group, and once a week they meet with like the group, and then once a week they get a one-on-one meeting with a counselor, and they begin to coach these kids life skills, and it is transformative. The kids' graduation rates go up, their academic performance goes up. You have kids like one's an athlete and one's not, and so 2 kids that would never be in a room together throughout the whole school of thousands of people are now friends, and they're crying in front of each other and really expressing their pain and their trauma. And there's no easy way to do this. That's how you do it. I mean, here's the issue though. It's for 55 kids in a school of thousands. And so if we're serious about this in the United States, we've got to ask put these kind of programs in place that we know are effective, that get results, and then ask the wealthiest people in the country to help us pay for this, to hire these counselors. Do we want to end this cycle or not? Are we committed to this or not? And we're not asking you to pay more because we hate you. We're asking you because we found solutions that are working, and we need to scale them up. And so you're American too, right? In the long run, this is going to be good for all of us, right?
Totally.
So I'm deeply committed to this.
I'm so glad to hear this. And you're one of the few.
Appreciate it. Can I get a yard sign up in your yard or what?
Yeah.
You want a caucus for me? I got to meet him 30 more times. Nice to see you. Thank you so much.
We count on you to work on this issue long term.
Oh, we're already on it.
All right.
Oh, yeah.